You're listening to Food System Flaws, where Natasha, Tiffany, Rowan, Christy, and Maya talk about sustainable urban planning in Toronto.
The City of Toronto's population alone within the Greater Toronto Area is expected to increase by over 750,000 in the next 27 years from nearly 3 million in 2019. Along with urban population growth, we can expect resource scarcity and climate change to greatly impact our food systems. Many consumers are being left in the dark about the origin of their food and their social, environmental, and economic footprint. So how do we address these issues? 2 words: urban planning. Urban planning includes the design and regulation of spaces while considering social and political concerns. For our purposes, the definition of sustainable urban planning focuses on sustainable use of land and resources, policy regulation and local initiatives from governments, and finally, the joint efforts of various food system actors and drivers. This is your host, Natasha, speaking, and our group is very excited to discuss these important aspects of Toronto's food system. Today's episode is called Cities That Feed Themselves: Sustainable Urban Planning in Toronto. We have broken these aspects down into subtopics for easier understanding. We will start with Maya, who will speak about key inputs and outputs in Toronto food systems, followed by Rowan, who will be discussing Toronto's policies. Then Tiffany will familiarize us with community initiatives and programs that Toronto has begun to implement. Finally, Christy will speak about a couple of cities that are leading innovators in sustainable urban planning, and will end us off with which ideas Toronto should consider in the future. Let's get started. I'll let our first speaker introduce herself.
Thanks, Natasha. Hi, everyone. I'm Maya. When looking at our food system as a whole, there are key inputs and outputs which must be in place in order to ensure its sustainability. I'm going to briefly discuss the most crucial inputs and outputs which influence urban planning and a sustainable food system.
That sounds great, Maya. May I ask what we consider inputs and outputs in a food system?
Of course, so the resources, energy, and materials which are used to produce the food in our system are known as the inputs, and the waste produced is known as the outputs. I will begin by discussing inputs in our food system, such as farm labor as it relates to urban planning and sustainability. We've seen that the global focus has moved to economic profit and the use of off-farm inputs, such as fertilizers, pesticides, and farm machinery. These industrial techniques are extremely unsustainable. They contribute to greenhouse gas emission, air pollutants, and the disruption of natural ecosystems. Industrial farming requires disproportionately more energy and resources than small-scale farms, which is very unsustainable.
Absolutely. Small farmers are not being given enough support in our industrialized food systems. Please tell us a bit about the outputs of our food systems.
Of course, so the outputs of our food system are really crucial when it comes to urban planning. Waste management is an area which can use a lot of improvement. Approximately 91,304 tons of food waste is generated annually, which is around 40% of all the food produced.
Wow, what are some ways we can make a difference in waste management to reduce these shocking statistics?
So in order to control the amount of waste, it's really important to take advantage of our compost bin. When used properly, the waste in our compost is used as fertilizer. This is how the food system completes and starts again. If not dealt with properly, though, the waste can end up as landfill. This creates methane gas, which is actually 25 times more harmful than carbon dioxide.
So waste can facilitate production if managed correctly. That's amazing. I will definitely be recommending composting to my family and friends. You also mentioned pollution as an output. Please tell us more.
Yeah, so pollution is another major output of our food system. Food accounts for over 26% of the global greenhouse gas emission. Half of the world's habitat land is used for agriculture, and a shocking 70% of our fresh water is used towards the food system. Every step of our food system contributes to pollution, whether it be transportation, agriculture, or machinery. And in order to create a sustainable food system, we really must take more notice of our ecological footprint by trying to consume less meat and buy locally more often.
Thank you, Maya, for joining us and sharing key knowledge on the inputs and outputs of our food systems. To everyone who's tuned in right now, are you composting at home? Coming up next, we have Toronto Policies with Rowan.
Hey everyone, my name is Rowan, and today I will be talking about Toronto policies in urban agriculture. Although there was no historical label associated with it, urban planning has been an effective farming technique used by farmers to grow crops. In the year 2009, the Sustainable Near-Urban Agriculture Policy was introduced to promote urban planning and sustainability. 1 year later, Toronto focused on the Toronto Food Strategy. This strategy encouraged the implementation of further policies and programs to help support urban planning and sustainable farming.
I see. So the policies surrounding urban planning and agriculture in Toronto are relatively new.
Yes, they are. A very progressive example of urban agriculture that has increased in popularity in Toronto is the idea of rooftop farming. Rooftop farming allows individuals to grow food produced on top of buildings. This strategy of farming is beneficial both environmentally and financially, and is supported by the Green Roof Bylaw. This allows many individuals to grow local produce at the convenience of their rooftop. Rooftop farming strengthens the relationships between farmers and the land and challenges farmers to find new ways to incorporate infrastructure into farming strategies in a sustainable manner. This is supported by a policy called Toronto and Region Conservative Authority, which supports the use of land and infrastructure to promote sustainable urban agriculture and offers farmland to new farmers.
Rooftop gardens, what an excellent policy for Toronto to be at the forefront of. In these times of COVID-19, we can especially see how community relationships can increase resiliency in our food systems. How can we promote more initiatives like this in Toronto?
The promotion of urban farming and sustainability requires extensive education and training. Programs such as Farm Start allow future generations of new farmers to adopt new strategies to further promote sustainable farming. Transparency is also required to raise awareness towards the topic of urban planning, which helps normalize sustainable farming in today's society. This may be accomplished by switching to a more online and technical approach to attract younger audiences. Next steps to enhance the policies is further revision and implementation of new policies that support urban farming. In addition, programs that emphasize urban agriculture may also be very beneficial in promoting sustainable farming practices.
Thanks so much, Rowan, for this rundown on Toronto policies. Coming up next, we have Tiffany, who will be speaking about community-led initiatives and programs in Toronto.
Hey everyone, my name is Tiffany, and I'm going to be touching on the various urban agriculture community initiatives and programs currently run in Toronto. Ever since Grow Toronto's Urban Agriculture Action Plan gained approval from the City Council in 2012, a surge in community gardens, school gardens, rooftop gardens, greenhouses, urban livestock like backyard chickens have become widely implemented.
Interesting. What would you consider as the most common form of urban agriculture in Toronto?
The most common form of urban agriculture in Toronto can be seen in every neighborhood. It's the growing of local food in gardens, windowsills, and balconies. One nonprofit organization known as the Stop Community Food Center has implemented a program called Yes in My Backyard, where they help Torontonians who don't have access to land find a place to grow food by connecting them to locals who agree to share their gardening spaces. It's honestly a great opportunity to boost social cohesion within the community, which may even increase the neighborhood's safety and reduce crime rates. Seeing as schools and universities take up a considerable part of the land in Toronto, the city has also partnered up with many local community partners such as Ryerson University to make use of their institutional lands as a site of urban activity. As discussed in Week 3, the Ryerson Urban Farm is a great example of urban agricultural practice in Toronto. Ryerson's innovative project repurposed unutilized space into a sustainable green space, all the while increasing accessibility to readily available fresh, nutritious produce. Established under Toronto's Green Roof Bylaw, Ryerson will also be adding a second rooftop on top of their Daphne Cockwell complex.
Thank you for sharing these initiatives and programs with us, Tiffany. The future looks promising for Toronto. However, we should also be interested in seeing what other cities are doing right now. Christy will introduce our next topic about sustainability measures outside of Toronto.
Thank you for the introduction. Many cities are leading by example on urban farming and using less resources for more fruits and vegetables. One of the cities being Amsterdam. One current experiment is with a wastewater company called WaterNet to extract all the nutrients and energy in their wastewater. A company can buy and utilize those nutrients and energy for farming and other uses in the city.
Extracting nutrients and energy from wastewater and redistributing it. How amazing is that? What else is the Netherlands doing in terms of sustainability?
Another significant factor about the Netherlands is how a lot of their land is covered in greenhouses and smaller modest family farms. In the greenhouses, They have geothermal aquifers, keeping the temperature steady and mainly using rainwater. After all of the tomatoes are grown and picked, seeds from their old crop are used. Their use of technology and land aids significantly in reducing their carbon output. Another city to take example from is Copenhagen in Denmark. Resources for farming are made by the city, like excess heat by buildings and composted waste. There are also many rooftop gardens and mobile raised beds of dirt on rooftops. These raised beds can be loaned to anyone, letting people have initiative for growing their own foods. Singapore is also doing great things, like giving a lot of support to farming and helping people learn to farm. Courses are being offered on many topics, including aquaponics, hydroponics, and mushroom growing, and grants are being given to local farmers and schools. The city has also been incorporating rooftop and vertical farming, and in one example is an 1,800 square meter farm, growing about 4 tons of vegetables monthly. Singapore is progressing more towards a sustainable approach.
Now that you mention it, it makes perfect sense for cities to be responsible in providing basic farming supplies to their population. That's an excellent way to encourage individuals to educate themselves and to promote a more sustainable environment. What do you suggest for Toronto to take away from these cities?
Using these cities as examples, multiple suggestions for Toronto would be to incorporate more rooftop and vertical gardens, more classes on farming, more greenhouses, and allocating the use of resources, like heat off of buildings. Vertical farming and farming courses for everyone to attend would be great to add to Toronto, as we could have educated farmers producing more food while using less resources. This would, in result, help reduce our carbon impact and the food insecurity that Toronto has.
Thank you, Christy, for these recommendations. And thanks to our audience today for listening to this podcast episode on sustainable urban planning in Toronto. We hope you enjoyed it. Before we go, show some support by leaving us a comment on the D2L discussion board. That's all for this episode.